Did you know that Jomo Kenyatta was a nickname for the first president of Kenya? He was born as Kamau Wagengi. He adopted the name Jomo, a Kikuyu word for burning spear, and Kenyatta, a Maasai word of the fancy belt that he often wore. Join me today for the first episode of the first season of the African Legends as we look the life of the first president of Kenya, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Please subscribe to our channel as we move forward to bring you a quality content. Thank you. Kenyatta was born in around 1890s at Ichaweri, southwest of Mount Kenya as Kamau Wagengi. He was son to Muigai and Wambui. At about age of 10, he became seriously ill with Jiggers infection. He underwent a successful surgery at newly established Church of Scotland Mission, and this was his first contact with Europeans. He later ran away from home to become a resident pupil at Mission. He studied the Bible, English, mathematics, and carpentry. In 1914, he was baptized as John Peter, which he later turned it to Johnston Kamau. He later left the mission for the urban life in Nairobi, where he secured a job as a clerk in Public Works Department. Here he adopted the name Kenyatta. After serving as interpreter in High Court, he transferred to a post with Nairobi Town Council, and about this time he married and began to raise family. In 1919, Kenyatta married his first wife Grace Wahu, and on 20th November 1922, his first son Peter Muigai was born. Margaret Kenyatta was born in 1928. Grace Wahu died in 2007. He married Edna Clark in May 11, 1942, according to the certificate offered by the government, a wedding that took place in England. She had one son, Peter Magana Kenyatta, who was born in August 11, 1944. Edna died in 1995 at age of 86. He then married his third wife, Grace Wanjiku, in 1946. She was a daughter to Senior Chief Koinange and sister to Mbiyu Koinange. She died while giving birth to Jane Makena Wambui in 1951. Jane survived. In 1951, he married his fourth wife Ngina Kenyatta, who is best known due to her role as First Lady. Mama Ngina bore 4 children named Wambui Ben in 1953, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta born in 1961, Anne Nyokabi Mudhama Kenyatta born in 1963, Muhoho Kenyatta born in 1965. In 1922, he joined East Africa Association that was formed in 1921 by an educated young Kikuyu man named Arithuku. It was the first African political protest movement in Kenya against white-dominated government. The main purpose of EAA was to recover Kikuyu land that was lost when Kenya became a British colony in 1920. In 1925, EAA disbanded as a result of government pressure, and its member formed Kikuyu Central Association, KCA. He later became the organization general secretary 3 years later. In May 1928, he launched a monthly Kikuyu language newspaper called Muigidhania, which means he who brings together. In February 1929, Kenyatta went to London to testify against the scheme, but the Secretary of the State for Colonies refused to meet him. In March 1930, he wrote an eloquent letter in the Times of London setting out the 5 issues championed by the Kikuyu Central Organization. Number 1 was security of land tenure and the return of the lands allotted to European settlers. Number 2, increase educational facilities. Number 3, repeal of taxes on women. Number 4 was African representation in Legislative Council. Number 5, non-interference with traditional customs. In 1931, his testimony on issue of closer union with the 3 British colonies, that is Kenya, Uganda and Tanganyika, was refused again. The first testimony was in 1928. He testified on behalf of the Kikuyu land claims in 1931 at the hearing of Carter Land Commission. The commission offered a commission for some appropriate territories but maintained the White Island policies. Kenyatta visited Soviet Union, where he spent 2 years at Moscow State University. He returned to London, where he studied anthropology at London School of Economics. In 1938, he published a book named Facing Mount Kenya, a study of traditional life of the Kikuyu. This book played a role in changing of its name to Jomo. Kikuyu Central Association was banned by Kenya authorities during Second World War. Jomo Kenyatta maintained himself in England by lecturing and working as farm laborer. While in England, Jomo Kenyatta organized the 5th Pan-Africa Congress in Manchester, England on October 15 to 18, 1945. W.E.B. Du Bois of United States was the chair. Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana was also present. Resolutions were passed and plans for mass nationalist movement to demand for the independence from colonial rule. In 1946, Jomo Kenyatta returned to Kenya. He was elected as president of Kenya African Union in June 1947. He organized a mass nationalist party when he was an alternative director of government educational institution from Kenya African Teachers College. A dangerous explosion among the Kikuyu erupted as Mau Mau rebellion in 1952. Mau Mau was directed against European settlers in Kenya and their ownership of land. Jomo Kenyatta was arrested on October 21, 1952 on charges of having directed Mau Mau movement. On April 1953, he was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment for managing Mau Mau terrorist organization. British government responded to African demand by gradually steering the country towards African majority rule. Kenya nationalist leaders such as Tom Mboya and Oginga Odinga organized Kenya African National Union and elected Jomo Kenyatta to be its president in absentia. He was still in detention despite having completed his sentence. He was released in August 1961. In 1962 at London Conference, he negotiated constitutional terms leading to Kenya's independence. KANU won in May 1963 pre-independence election, and on December 12, 1963, Kenya celebrated its independence with Kenyatta as Prime Minister. A year later, Kenyatta became the first president of Kenya due to Kenya being one-party republic. He became president under new constitutional amendments. He headed a strong central government, and a successful constitutional amendment increased his authority, giving him power to arrest political opponents and detain them without trial if he considered them dangerous to public order. He used this power effectively, though not often. Kenyatta consistently appointed members of different ethnic groups to his government. He preached a doctrine of personal and entrepreneurial effort symbolized by his slogan Harambee, which means pulling together. He encouraged foreign investment from Western and other countries. Kenya's gross national product grew 5 times from 1971 to 1981, and its economic growth was among the highest in Africa. During his leadership, his government was consistently friendly towards the West despite its imprisonment by the British authorities. Kenyatta made Kenya the most stable black African country and one of the most economical dynamic. He died on 22nd of August 1972 in Mombasa, Kenya. The African Legends, exclusively on Branuksa Media Center.